You had a heart-stopping memory slip on stage. Everyone has them, and we all want this feeling to never come back again. So here are 5 tips to make your life easier. We'll go through some aspects of the visual, analytical, and muscle memory, and how to use them to memorize music effectively, so you really feel confident for your next performance. Tip number 1. Use original scores. There are many different kinds of memory, but the visual is one of the strongest on which you can rely. As you look at the sheet music, you memorize not only the patterns of the notes, but also every little detail on it. There is something magical about having this lightly colored paper of an original score in front of you. It somehow makes the music pop. Those printed black and white pages feel cold, distant, and not really alive. Once I was traveling for a concert with my chamber ensemble Silhouettes, check out our YouTube channel, and I got a call to substitute for a colleague of mine to play the Tchaikovsky concerto with an orchestra. The concert was in just 2 weeks, and of course I have played it with an orchestra before, but you know this monstrosity of a piece. I really was scared by the lack of time, but couldn't miss the opportunity to perform it again. I remember being on the train, not having my score with me. Naturally, I dug up some sheet music from the internet and started practicing right there on the train. It was a nightmare not having my own score in front of me. My fingerings, the structure of it, even the slightest wrinkles from time on the paper. But as soon as I got back home and saw my music, everything started falling into place. Sometimes we don't have the luxury to find an original score in time, but my advice is to try and search for one first when learning a new piece. Tip number 2. Write your fingerings in as soon as possible. Research carefully for the most comfortable fingerings, as well as those that align with your musical ideas. Write all of them down, because sometimes your mind will recall just a single number and save you on stage. There are these famous places in Bach's fugues, for example, where you need to recall this one shift, otherwise you go back to the beginning and this can make you go in circles forever. Even if you decide to change a finger, even before a concert, let it be an exception, because this will spare you a lot of trouble in the future. Tip number 3. Divide and conquer. Review the whole piece, or just one movement if you're learning a new concerto or a sonata, and divide it into sections. Look for the big picture, exposition, development, recapitulation if the piece has them. If not, look for the themes and the connections between them. If it's variations, find the raw material of the theme in every variation. If it's a fugue, find the times the main subject comes back. Look for the exposition, episodes, contrapoint, modulation, and so on. This way you'll always have a structure in your mind and never get lost on stage. The division will help you see the form of the piece and help you understand what you'll be dealing with in general. Also, this way you can calculate your time for learning the piece by identifying the most difficult sections and giving them a little bit more time within your time frame. You can speed up the process by listening to the piece while looking at the score. This will give you the whole perspective also with the other voices involved, and to know the role of your solo at any time. For example, when you have to enter with your solo, how it reacts to the accompaniment, and many more to help you create patterns and connections to memorize the form. Once you have those, even if you do make a mistake, you can orient yourself faster and go from the next section quicker. Tip number 4. Memorize every movement. We often think that the muscle memory applies mainly to the fingers, such as shifts, fingerings, but not exclusively. The muscle memory is connected to the movement of your entire body. For example, concluding a whole phrase, how to breathe, when to lean back or forward. But this should always depend on your musical desire, never just because you think that you have to be more dramatic to look cooler on stage. Trust me, you can see the difference. The trouble is that muscle memory is mainly trained unconsciously, and this is why it is the first one to disappear from our minds. So this is a little bonus tip for when you're going back to a piece. Always look to the score. Never trust your fingers because sometimes they lie. What you could do to strengthen your muscle memory is to combine it with auditory memory, which is to imagine your part in your mind while moving and placing your fingers as if you're actually playing it. If you can go through the whole piece like that, at any time, in any place, you will have 0 memory slips on stage. Tip number 5. Practice slowly and in small sections. This tip applies to many topics. But in order to comprehend every small detail of information from the score, you need to be kind to your body and mind. Don't force yourself to play perfectly in tempo from the first go, even if you heard the piece millions of times. Your memory should be filled gradually, but in the end, this will spare you a lot of time. Your first goal is to practice every note correctly. This will never happen if you rush yourself, and every time you repeat a mistake, it will take 10 times longer to get rid of it. This will get you into a lot of trouble, especially if you are on a time frame. And you chose to watch this video, so maybe you are. The exact same reason is why you should practice into small sections. But I cannot tell you how small. It depends on you. My advice is to memorize in a musically finished sentences. It could be a phrase, a repeatable passage, a whole theme, or a whole musical section. Lastly, combine every type of memory you have toward the score. In the end, every little piece of information helps in that exciting moment on stage. To make it only a positive experience, try to memorize as early as you can. This way you will truly enjoy yourself on stage, connecting to the audience. But if you do make a mistake and you worked hard on your performance, please don't focus on the negative. After all, some of the most famous and moving performances in history had mistakes in them. And as long as you poured your heart into the performance, the audience will appreciate that a lot more than to focus on 1 or 2 wrong notes that happen to make you human. So enjoy your practice today.